This is going to be hopefully a short video on making fire taffy. Call it fire taffy because it's a fire starter made from the traditional Vaseline petroleum jelly and cotton balls. And but it's a little bit cleaner and neater because I wrap it up in wax paper and jute twine. And so for this task you will need cotton balls, Vaseline, wax paper, jute twine, a plastic knife or craft stick or some kind of something to stir the petroleum jelly once it gets hot, some kind of a old pan or pot or double boiler type thing. You may be able to microwave the Vaseline directly in the jar or put it in a glass jar. I haven't tried that myself, so I'm not going to try that now. So some kind of double boiler and then something to cool it in. This happens to be my old mess kit pan with just some aluminum foil in it to keep the pan clean so that cleanup is easier. Also, you're going to need a pair of scissors and a pair of pliers. Scissors for cutting the twine and pliers for handling the hot petroleum jelly. If you can get them with a smooth inside to the pliers instead of this style with the teeth in it, the teeth tends to grab the cotton and hold on to the cotton more and fray the cotton, and it kind of becomes messy. If you can get them smooth, and maybe you could put tape on the around the, wrap them with tape so that it doesn't grab the cotton and hold on to the cotton. So that's it. We'll get started. Now I would point out that there's a lot of recipes out there and a lot of instruction out there for doing the Vaseline and cotton ball fire starters out there. PJ balls, I think you can search for them under PJ balls for petroleum jelly balls. They do get kind of messy though. I've seen them where people just work the petroleum jelly directly into the cotton ball, just work it into the cotton ball by hand. And I like the method where you actually heat up the petroleum jelly. And I'm using a double boiler here so that it keeps it from getting too hot too fast. I like that method because it really infuses the cotton ball with the petroleum jelly. The advantage of wrapping it in wax paper and putting a little bit of jute wrapper on it is it keeps it clean and neat. It's still a little bit squishy, so if you needed to put a bunch of them in an Altoids tin, you could do that. And it just makes it less messy. You get less residue, less Vaseline residue on your fingers. So I have scooped a bunch of the Vaseline out of the jar into the pan, and I'm just slowly melting that down. Now I already started with a few of these. I'll show you how to do it in a second here, but I wanted to point out that I am using some crushed ice in a pan underneath this just to get them cooling down. The idea is you want them nice and cool when you're working with them with the wax paper. So I'm going to cool these down and put them in the freezer eventually. But I put a little too much petroleum jelly in my cup and it was almost overflowing, so I did a few just to absorb some of the petroleum jelly that was in the cup, that was in my melting pot here. I'd point out that when you're doing fire starters, it takes a while to set all this up, and while you're doing it, better to go big or go home. You know, just get a bunch of them done for the whole year, for the whole season, and you'll be all set. It doesn't take too much time to do a double batch. So you've got 100 cotton balls here for $1, and a big thing of Vaseline for $4 or $5. So This'll take care of me for an entire year, if not more. So I don't know how well you can see that, but my petroleum jelly is pretty well melted. I'm going to start working with it because you don't really need it all to be melted. You just need enough liquid to be able to dip your cotton ball into. So I've actually adapted my camera setup here so that hopefully I can do this without having to hold the camera. So the idea of this, and I got this idea from another YouTube video. If I can find it again, I'll post the link to the video itself. And thanks to those who have gone before me. So the idea is to get the whole thing soaked with petroleum jelly. I'm going to use my fingers first and just dip the bottom part in. And then grab that bottom part with the pliers and dip the top, flip it around and put the other part in. You don't really need this to be too soaked, so you can kind of shake out the excess and then just put it on your cooling plate. Again, cotton ball, dip, grab it, oops, now it's soaked. Again, you want to get it infused with petroleum jelly, but you don't want it so much that the thing is oozing with it after the fact. Alright, one more here. So the more petroleum jelly you get in there, the longer it's going to burn, but also the messier it gets. I think these will burn for about, I don't know, 7 or 10 minutes. 10 minutes on the high end, say 5 to 10 minutes, which should be enough to get just about any fire going. And then after that, after I'm done with a whole bunch of these, I'm going to put them in the freezer to cool. Okay, so I got about 50 of these petroleum jelly balls, and I've had them in the freezer for probably about a half an hour, and what that does is it just makes it hard and solid, firmer, so that it's not as squishy when you're trying to work with them after the fact. You still get your fingers all petroleum jelly, obviously, but so I got about 50 out of that container of petroleum jelly, and I still have a half a thing of cotton balls left. I then took the wax paper and I cut wax paper into about 4-inch squares. And then I just wrap it up like a piece of taffy. You just roll it like that around the ball, and then you just twist each end around like that. Oh, that one ripped, so I kind of screwed that one up. Not a big deal, but be careful not to rip the end when you wrap. We'll do another one. So 4-inch square of wax paper. Petroleum jelly ball. Loosely wrap one side. Loosely wrap the other side. And there you have it. Kind of squeeze the excess air out of there. There's no reason for having the air in there. And then, so you've got your basic fire taffy. Then I take a 6-inch, roughly 6-inch piece of jute twine, and I just put an overhand knot in one side. Slip the end through. This just helps to keep it tight and tied. Plus the jute itself is a good tinder. So I tie it around that end and then just do it again around the other end. This last step with the jute isn't really necessary, but I would worry that in my pack or in my tinder container, my tinder box, that these would kind of come undone, and I do kind of manipulate them a little bit in my container. I pack them kind of tight, so having this little extra cord makes me feel better about it. So that's it. Just wrap it and tie the ends. You can use that later as tinder if you want. You can light both ends, either end, light it in the middle, cut a slit in it anyway, and fray out the cotton and petroleum jelly and light that directly. We'll do a little testing on them, but that's basically the concept. So I just wanted to show this one. This one looks pretty good. I was able to squeeze most of the air out as I was wrapping it and get it pretty tight. So that's a pretty good example of what it should look like. Of course, we're just going to burn them anyways, but that's my perfect one, all tied up, ready for consumption. By fire, of course. Not suitable for eating.